Good evening and welcome to Legal Bites. That's quality CPD delivered as you need it, when you want it, all in bite-sized chunks. Welcome to a windy night in Sydney. If you hear thumps and noises in the background, that's my balcony being blown away. And I think tonight it's a time for red wine and not for coffee. So pause the video and go and get yourself a glass. Welcome back. Today we're looking at learning from other people's mistakes. As we continue our journey, this is part 3 of our look at mistakes, learning from other people's mistakes. And we're going to ask the question, why should we? And how do we do it? We're then going to look at a process for sharing of mistakes, and then some thoughts about coaching and mentoring. Now, I was looking online to do some research about this topic, and I was surprised to see that there's a whole Reddit stream on whether it's better to learn from our own mistakes or the mistakes of others. Now, there was all the obvious statements of people saying, oh, well, if I don't have all the bruises and cuts from my own mistakes, then the lessons won't sink in and I won't really learn. Then others are saying, hey, learn from the mistakes of others, it's free, it's easy. Now, I kind of like the way one of the writers put it. They said, well, I'm a trumpet player. And as for learning how my lips go on the trumpet and how to blow, I'll learn that from my own mistakes. But when it comes to lessons like texting while standing in front of an oncoming tram, I'm more than happy to leave that to learn from the experiences of others. There's apparently a Lebanese saying which says, a smart man learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. I don't know if that's how Lebanese speak. I suspect not. But you get the point. I think I'll leave the final word to Eleanor Roosevelt, and I'll read this. She said, learn from the mistakes of others. You can't live long enough to make them all yourself. If she said it, it must be true. So if we're learning from the mistakes of others, how do we do it? Because we don't have the scrapes and the bruises to make those lessons stick. It's not enough to just hear something. It's not enough to just read something. We need to feel it. And the best way to feel it is through story. So if we want to take on a lesson, the best thing to do is that we should imagine that we're the main character in the story. We need to know the backstory of how the mistake, how the tension happened. We need to understand the pain that it causes. We need to feel that pain in our body. And we need to feel the joy and the release when we find a way of dealing with that pain. So until we go through all of this, we really can't call that experience our own, and we really can't learn from the mistakes. So make it part of your life that you will learn from mistakes. And more than that, you'll take the time to embody them so they become part of your being, so that you learn from those mistakes and can take them forward into a brighter and better informed future. This is why biographies and fables are so powerful. We get to hear the whole story, but more than that, to feel the full emotional colour and movement of the whole story. For instance, if any of you have ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, it's a horrific story of someone in the concentration camp at Auschwitz. And you get to feel the terror of being in that situation. But you also get to learn the life-affirming lesson that the quality of our life has nothing to do with the circumstances we're in, but the attitude that we bring to it. And going through that journey, we can take that wisdom, that lesson into our own life. Now, the fact is that we already profit and use the lessons of others every day. When you think of it, a map, I don't mean a Google map, but an old-fashioned map drawn by a cartographer, is really a story of 1,000 wrong turns. And a recipe is just a story of too much sugar, not enough salt, getting it right, making mistakes until you have the perfect recipe that you record then for other people. So it's learning from mistakes. And as lawyers, we're perfectly placed to understand this, because the whole of the development of the common law is a constant course correction as people, defendants make mistakes, or lower courts make mistakes, and superior courts then assess that and give a statement of what the true position of the law is. And as a society, we learn from our mistakes. But as lawyers, we don't learn from our mistakes. Lawyers don't admit that they make mistakes, and hence the process of learning from mistakes in our profession is really slow. In effect, our pride makes us poorer lawyers. My ex-wife's an occupational therapist, and in the hospital where she used to work, they used to have what they called M&M conferences. Now, I naturally assume that M&M conferences means that they got out little chocolates wrapped in candy, but that would be wrong. M&M stands for mortality and morbidity. And it's where the doctors get together with graphs and charts, and they run through all the mistakes they've made in the last month. And they get together and talk about it to their peers, so that there's a chance for everybody to benefit from the collective learning of the stuff-ups of the doctors. Now, obviously, that's done behind closed doors. There are, of course, moves by government to try and bring in a mandate for open disclosure. We're not quite there yet. But there's many academics who will say that doing that is actually good for the whole of the community and also good for the patients, including the ones where the mistakes were made, because truth can often set us free. But making mistakes is horrible. We're scared of our clients, and we're often even more scared of our colleagues. See, law's a gladiatorial sport. We get ahead by standing on the bodies of those colleagues that we've slain and left beside us. Lawyers are like sharks in a school, and none of us want to let our blood get in the water for fear of being mobbed and eaten and killed. I remember the time when a claim was made against me by a client for not disclosing an easement running, apparently a huge easement running along the front of their property, which severely impacted the value. Now, that whole process took months of a complaint before the Legal Services Commissioner. The file, luckily, clearly showed that I had a survey, and I'd file noted that I'd discussed it, which for me sometimes is a rare event, but I had, and there was nothing further to be done. But it happened right at the time when I was running for partnership at Mallisons, and the stress of it nearly brought me to my knees and probably destroyed my partnership chances that year and took another year to get through. The threat of being sued by our clients is ever present. We all live in fear and stress about making mistakes. But I strongly urge you to create a culture in your organizations where you can share about mistakes and share the lessons learned from those mistakes. It doesn't have to be a full-blown M&M conference with pictures and files, but it'd be really good for senior lawyers to become vulnerable with the young lawyers about the mistakes they've made through their career. And for the young lawyers to have a culture where they can get together and be honest that none of them are perfect. I think Brené Brown's right, and that there is power in vulnerability. And guys, I've heard from a number of my female friends that vulnerability is extremely sexy. So this is the final challenge I leave with you. You can't change your industry. It'll still be overrepresented by narcissistic sociopaths and paranoid depressives. There'll still be greed and competitiveness, but be the change you want to see in the world. Share your vulnerability about the mistakes you make. Become a mentor for those others who are coming through behind you. Help to grow them and to grow the profession. And it can be on a no-names basis. There's no need to bare your weak underbelly to your clients just yet. Well, thanks for listening to this rant on mistakes. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we discuss the 3 helpful steps, the 3-step process to go through for dealing with our mistakes. See you then.